Welcome to Interviewsicle, a musical feature where I talk with authors and other interesting guests about their work, their ideas, and the stories behind what they do. Today, we will be talking to Kate DiCamillo. She is one of the most celebrated children's book authors and has written dozens of books and created unforgettable characters, from Mercy Watson to Opal in Because of Winn-Dixie and Despereaux in The Tale of Despereaux. Her more recent books include Orison Timble, Lost Evangeline, and Ferris. She has won 2 Newbery Medals for her amazing work. Recently, she teamed up with fellow author Kelly Yang to create a podcast called StoryKind, which aims to spark joy, connection, and a love of storytelling in kids. Today, we will be talking about Kate DiCamillo's incredible career and books, her new podcast, and a fan favorite, the lightning round. Let's get started.
Wake up, tune in, it's time to know what's happening fast, what's moving slow. Stories big and stories small, it's Newsicle, we've got it all. Smart news, cool views, this is Newsicle.
Welcome to Interviewsicle, Miss DiCamillo. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Hey, I've got my dog here. Hopefully he won't get in the way, but just
Definitely not.
Okay. All right. Frank, be good. Okay. Lily, I'm ready for all the tough questions.
Okay. First of all, I'd love our listeners to know more about you. Where did you grow up, and did you enjoy reading as a kid? Did you always know you wanted to be an author?
I grew up in a small town in Central Florida called Claremont, which is about 30 miles west of Orlando. And that town had a small library. It was in an old house. It was called the Cooper Memorial Public Library. I was really lucky in that I had a mom that took me to that library twice a week. And I was a kid who lived to read, just as now as an adult. It is one of the primary pleasures of my life. It's how I understand the world. So that's who I am. And when you ask me who I am in the world, the answer is almost always reader. That's the thing that comes out of my mouth first.
Since reading is such a big part of who you are, my next question is, what was your favorite book as a kid, and what did you love about it?
I can never pick just one favorite book. As a kid, as an adult, I'll just do 2 books that I remember just coming back to a lot as a kid. One of them was a Newbery winner called The 21 Balloons. And I loved that book, and I would read it and reread it. And then I also loved Stuart Little by E.B. White. Hey, Lily, I got a question, though. Have you read Charlotte's Web?
Oh, yes, I have. It's so good.
Okay, and I didn't read that as a kid because I was so worried about the pig on the cover of the book and what might happen to him that I
Yeah.
was afraid to read it.
Speaking of characters, I have read all your books and especially love the characters in them. I especially love Opal and Because of Winn-Dixie. You talked about your characters on your podcast StoryKind and said, I never feel like I make them up. I discover them. They're real people. Can you give our listeners some examples of how you discover your amazing characters?
That is a direct quote from me. That sounds exactly like me, and that's what I always say. One of the things that I do is carry this notebook with me, because I think part of, for me, in the way that I work and finding the characters rather than making them up, is to keep everything open. And so that means that when I'm out in the world, I'm looking and listening and letting myself wonder and imagine all the time. And the notebook is a good reminder to do that. And so sometimes in that notebook, I'll be doing something entirely different, and I'll think of a name, and the name will then pull the character in. So that's one way that it happens. Sometimes somebody will say something, so it will be a line of dialogue, and then that can get turned into a character. So I've learned to never take for granted that I'm going to remember what I hear. So I always have the notebook, and then I found that the notebook really reminds me of what my job is in the world, which is to pay attention.
And beyond the notebook, what inspires your imagination to bloom?
Well, reading is one thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, sometimes people will ask, do you get ideas from reading other books? Sure, I do, because it's just like you're enmeshed in story, and part of writing is absorbing all the other stories and the narrative arc of stories. And so books are a big inspiration to me, but also just being out in the world and looking at things. There's so much beauty, and it's good to keep on reminding myself of that. I watched a bumblebee today go into all the way into a flower and scooch around inside there. And that was so miraculous to me. I thought, gosh, I wonder if there's a story in there. So it's just always paying attention is where the
Yeah,
inspiration comes from.
that's really good advice. Switching gears a bit, a number of your books have been adapted into films. How does it feel to see one of your books turned into a movie?
It's a thrill. It's always exciting. And when I go out and talk to people, there's always somebody that wants to know why the movie isn't like the book exactly. When you read, do you see the book in your head as you're reading? Does
Yeah,
it
I
unfold
do.
for yeah. And science tells us that that's 70% of us. Most of us, when we're reading, we see it in our head. So that means we all have our own movies in our head. No one is going to make the movie that's in your head because it's unique to your head, which is one of the miracles of reading. I love that. But so the movie is always different than the book. It's a different art form, but it's a wonderful thing when a book gets turned into a movie because people will find their way to the book, and that is a fantastic thing.
On the subject of new stories, you have a new Mercy Watson book, Love and Mercy, coming out.
Mm.
Can you tell us more about the story without giving too much away?
I will tell you two things about the story. It takes place on Valentine's Day, and Mrs. Watson is busy making what she calls toast hearts. So it's toast in the shape of a heart with butter, of course,
Of
and
course.
yeah, and some cinnamon and sugar. Yeah. So toast hearts and Valentine's Day.
You said in one of your podcast episodes that you don't know how your books are going to end before you get started. Can you tell our listeners more about how you get started on a book and your process for writing?
Sure. That's how Kelly and I became friends because we were on a
Really?
panel together. Yeah, we were on a panel and somebody said something about outlining and I said I don't outline, I don't know what's going to happen. And Kelly turned to me and she said, "Are you kidding me? How can you write it if you don't outline it?" This is something that I have found from talking to lots of writers and being on lots of panels. Everybody does it differently. So for me, sometimes it will start just with an image. Sometimes it will start with a title like Lost Evangeline. That title was the very first thing that came. And then I realized that Evangeline was this impossibly small little girl. But it was only when I sat down to write that arrived. So what I do is I start with an image or I start with a sentence or I start with a line of dialogue. And it's like walking down a long dark hallway and there's this little strip of light. And slowly, 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 I make it to the light on the other side of that door, but I don't know anything as I'm doing it.
Have you ever been completely surprised by what one of your characters did?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been surprised at what characters have done, and I've also been surprised when characters I did not see coming all of a sudden showed up in the story. It's just like I had no plans, didn't see them at all, and then boom, there they were.
Your books have beautiful illustrations. How do you select and work with illustrators? Can you tell us a little about how authors and illustrators work together?
I don't control necessarily who gets to be the illustrator. I have what's called rights of refusal. So I can say, oh, absolutely not that. But the publisher, this is the design team and my editor, they work together to come up with some names that they think might be good. I look at sample art and then that person will start to work with my editor and the design team to do the illustrations. I'm not in the room with the illustrator. I'm not talking with them, and a lot of times I don't even meet them until after the book is done. Sophie Blackall, who did the incredible art for Lost
Mhm.
Evangeline, also did it for the Beatrice Prophecy, and Sophie and I have become friends. So that means that it moves a little bit differently. I do get to see what Sophie's doing because she and I are friends and we talk to each other.
Speaking of collaborating with others, now let's talk about your new podcast. In January, you launched your podcast StoryKind with Kelly Ying, the author of many amazing books, including the Front Desk series, which I loved. You have both spoken about being concerned that kids are reading less and spending more time watching videos. That is something we talk about a lot on Newsicle. Can you tell our listeners what StoryKind is about?
StoryKind is about writing stories. It's about reading stories. But more than that, even, I think what we hope to do and what we do for each other is form a community. So when Kelly and I meet up to talk about what we're working on, how the work is going, and then we open it up to a reader question. And we also like to give a shout out to teachers and librarians from all over who are doing amazing work. What we're working to make happen is the magic of community, and the magic of community that is always available in books, in writing books, and in reading books. And it's just kind of like a reminder to everybody that this is available to all of us. And also, there are a lot of people who I wonder if you're one of them who want to be writers themselves. Are you
Yeah.
a writer? Yeah.
Yeah, I love writing. I bring a small journal around, and I also keep one by my bed because whenever I have dreams, I always like to keep them down because they're actually really good inspiration for books.
That is such a good idea, and I need to do that with having a notebook by the bed, and I've done it periodically, and that is a great place to find stories, right? In your
Mhm.
dreams, it's amazing what your brain can do. So back to you being a writer. There are so many people who have a story that they want to tell, and this is kids and adults. And part of what we do with the podcast is just kind of like demystify it. It is that thing of encouraging everybody to find the way that works for them to tell the story. And your dream journal idea is a fantastic thing. We'll have to like talk about that on the
Mhm.
podcast.
What do you hope a child thinks or does after listening to an episode of StoryKind?
Well, I hope they get themselves a dream notebook. I hope they get themselves a regular notebook. I hope they think, oh, yeah, reading, that's a good way to get ideas. Or guess what? I could write a book if I wanted to. We both remember what it was like to be kids. And so whenever we're talking about writing, we also have access to that kid self that we were. It would have been wonderful for me to have had somebody say to me, you could be a writer if you wanted. No one ever said that. So that's a beautiful thing that we get to do with the podcast. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how old you are, you can be a writer.
You and Kelly Yang have covered some really interesting topics on StoryKind, including how you plan your stories, choose what to write about, revise your work, and even why people are mean. What else can listeners look forward to in future episodes?
More and more, we're hoping that we get to talk to more teachers, more librarians, those people who are out there putting stories into kids' hands all the time and doing that beautiful work. So all those stories of the inspiring teachers and librarians, we want to get more of those out too.
What is one of the most important things kids can do if they want to write?
Read. Read, and that notebook that you have, that notebook that I have, and let's put a dream notebook in there too. Yeah.
Now it's time for the lightning round. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm going to try really hard.
Who is your favorite character you've written?
I can never answer that question, but if you shoved me against a wall and insisted, I would probably have to say Winn-Dixie because of Winn-Dixie, um, I get to do this amazing work of telling stories for kids. Everything that happened because of that dog.
And Winn-Dixie in the book, the way you describe it, I can really picture it in my mind even without looking up on the cover.
Yeah, no, he's so real, He exists.
What is your favorite snack or drink for writing?
I never, ever snack while I'm writing, never. That's the reward for after. However,
Mhm.
the writing does not happen without the coffee. I get up early, really early in the morning to write, and I have a coffee maker that goes off at 5:30 in the morning, so, yeah.
What is your favorite children's book that you didn't write?
Probably Charlotte's Web. Yeah, I think it's perfect, yeah.
And my final question for the lightning round, what were you most curious about when you were a kid, and what are you most curious about now?
What a great question. Let's just pause for a minute and say that is a fabulous question. What was I most curious about when I was a kid? What the adults were up to. I never, ever really understood them. What am I most curious about as an adult? How is it that I got to be one of those adults that the kids are wondering, what is she up to? Yeah, it's astonishing to walk around carrying that 8-year-old inside of me and to be 62 years old. It's a surprise. And I find the whole thing curious.
And our last question is StoryKind was partly created because fewer children are reading for pleasure. What do you think adults sometimes get wrong when they try to convince kids to read?
I think that the biggest thing that adults can do, two things. One, you should be reading yourself for yourself as an adult and let your child see you reading. Two, reading is often presented as this task. Go to your room and read for 15 minutes. And instead, it should be like, wow, can you believe how lucky you are that you get to read? I get up, like I said, really early. I do my work all day long. My reward is at around 3 o'clock. Everything gets turned off. And what do I get to do? I get to read. It is my treat. That's what I'm looking forward to all day long. And so I think we forget sometimes the joy and privilege it is to be able to read.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
That was fantastic. And you did a brilliant job.
Thank you. And to our listeners, StoryKind is available wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope today's conversation inspired you to read the books by Kate DiCamillo, listen to her podcast, and maybe even begin writing a story of your own. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Interviewsicle.